gave me a good treatment. And as is in Thailand, it was free for a bhikkhu. And then who should I meet there but Ajahn Jayanto, getting his knees done. So then he came, we had tea together. Lovely, very nice. So I just answered a couple of these questions. Background, space, awareness. Are they all the same thing? Are they all sati? Yeah, I'd say so. The thing that comes to my mind with that question is, are we trying to fit our experience into a doctrinal or intellectual structure? So the intellectual and doctrine of Theravada Buddhism has sati and has all this language. Are we trying to fit our experience into that? Or are we looking at experience as it is and then understanding what all these words might mean? It seems if you try to do the former, you're just trying to fit everything into a intellectual doctrinal structure, which is not wrong, the structure, but then you're not really looking at the way things are. So I think it remains intellectual. Whereas experiential is before you do that. So I'll come to that again. Let me just answer then from Karen online. Dear Lone Paul, I seek your wise clarification. In formal meditation, there is this richness in exploring and dwelling in awareness, where all preconceived notions of the body and mind fall away. However, when practicing in the foreground of waking experience, this awareness feels like a mottled sunlight peeking through the pixels of perception. Wow. For those of you who like poetry. Nice one, Karen. There is comprehension that is imbued with compassion, this softness of discernment mixed with love and acceptance. Does this sound right? Sounds pretty good to me. That even the birth of a thought thereafter is awareness. That's an interesting way to consider it. So maybe to those types of questions. So I'm standing on my balcony and I'm looking at a tree. And then I perceive the tree is quite beautiful. And then I think, well, that looks like that could be a rain tree. Looks like a rain tree. The leaves look like that. It's quite tall, probably as tall as our American basswoods at Tiserna. So then that experience is mediated by thought. So actually, I'm no longer seeing the tree. What I'm seeing is a bunch of perceptions and definitions in thought, and they're not wrong, or they are wrong. I'm not sure. They look like a rain tree, but they're not the immediate experience. The immediate experience would be this. I could say that this experience of visual perception is in awareness. And then the awareness is quite silent. It's not really making a comment. And this is what we would call pure awareness or pure consciousness or pure knowing. Now, when that is done, and that is sustained for long periods of time, then I would say that would be what Longpa means when he says the doors to the deathless are open for those who have the faith to listen. When Longpa Sumedho begins a Dhamma talk, he begins it with Namo Tassa, and then he does a Pali line. And that Pali line is translated as the doors to the deathless are open. So if my attention is around defining, perceiving, then that's fine. I need to do that in the world. But I'll always be in the object. It'll always be about the object. But the object is formed and structured what is unformed and unstructured and unborn? Well, the practice would be if you take I guess the Thai word penyang niang, what might that mean? It would mean just pure knowing. Now, if that happens for a while, then there's a deep silence which is perceived. And that deep silence isn't something that is constructed, it's just noticed. But I can't notice that if I'm always manipulating the object or thinking about the object. And then deep in that example, let's say I'm on a porch and I'm listening to the river. And in the listening, there's just listening. Coughing, air conditioner, river, just sound, right? But let's say the neighbors come on a weekend and they start to play Jimi Hendrix. Yeah, I used to really like Jimi Hendrix. Or they play some smarmy pop song. Very, very, the word smarmy? It's all about love, that kind of song. Whatever it is, whatever the sound is, let's say it's an old rock song, which I enjoyed. My mind goes out even more to the objective experience because it's interesting. Or there's just I mean, this used to happen at Wat Nana Chat when Bungwai village would have a fair. Then they'd turn on the ghetto blasters. You probably heard this story from Luang Tomato. He's out in some maybe it was Nana Chat, but this song starts to come across the rice fields. Sound really carries into Isan. There's nothing to block it. It's just all rice fields. And when the villagers have a do, they play it loud. So here's this village sound coming through, and I think the song was a white sports coat and a pink carnation, which is a kind of 50s song. And Lompa hears it, he starts to cry because his emotions are triggered by the sound of the music. That's an aside. Back to my example. I'm standing on the porch, and now there is a sound, but the sound has a valence. It has Vedana. It's pleasant or unpleasant. Because it's pleasant and unpleasant, and I'm not quite aware, my desire mind kicks in. Oh, can you play more of that one? Or will you guys shut up? I'm trying to meditate. So tanha comes in. So now I'm even more enmeshed in the objects, in the objective world. Then maybe I think, I should be a good meditator. I should just have upeka, right? I shouldn't be bothered by this. Then I try to have upeka. Good luck. It just doesn't work that way. And then I try to get rid of my aversion to the sound. Okay, now I accept it. I accept it. It's lovely. Doesn't work. So more and more and more and more, my attention now is all caught up with the objects. The doors to the deathless are certainly not open. In fact, I've been reborn into some kind of a realm. In this situation, we have the opportunity to touch into that pure awareness because it's very uncomplicated here, I hope. I mean, for me, maybe for you, it's not too complicated. So it's very uncomplicated. We don't have to be a personality. You don't have to be clever or wise or be happy. Nothing you have to do. It's great. So I would suggest that in in here or in nature, wherever, begin to understand what pure awareness is. Awareness before there is commentary, before there is searching, before there is judgment, just the way it is. And I touch that a lot with nature. Thinking about ornithology, say. Um, I like birding. So I see a bird across the river and I think That looks like a plover. I wonder, do they have plovers in Thailand? Maybe not. So then it might be a plover, but again, I'm in the object. And that's what birding is about. It's about identifying the object and enjoying the object. Nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying it's wrong. But now, can I just have visual perception without the need to identify? Now, if I can do that with something quite neutral, like the sound of the river, the shape of a tree, whatever, and just learn how to abide in pure awareness, pure knowing, then what becomes really interesting, a natural question for me starts to arise. Where is the person in this? Where is the me doing the looking? It's a natural or kind of response to that silence. It's not like intellectual, because I guess I've read the teaching so much, right? Anatta. So I'm looking and I can't see. I cannot see any person. There is consciousness, there is experience, but I can't see a person. There's individuality, sure. This set of eyes, this set of bodily formations, notice this. All I can really know is there's silent consciousness and change. And I think that's the insight into anatta, not intellectual, because intellectually it sounds like there's nothing, right? Anatta, there's no self. Well, yeah, it's my knee that hurts, right? Not your knee, or maybe your knee hurts, but it hurts in a different way. So what does anatta mean? So intellectually, it's a very, very difficult concept, but the sense of a person, an individual, me looking at that, it's true. You could say conventionally it's true, but also, is there not something bigger? And that's the movement or the consideration of the unconditioned, the unformed, the unoriginated peace or silence, and that through pure awareness, not through becoming, because becoming is always about the next event that I want to get. So you sit down and just like quite often the best meditation is when you're not meditating. You know, when you've given up trying to get enlightened, when you're comfortable, you've had a cup of tea, you're not falling asleep, you're just listening. I just notice the silence, which is always there. So I would suggest that, like, just learn, figure out what is pure awareness as opposed to awareness which has an agenda in it. I'm trying to figure out what Viradhammo is talking about. How do I get to pure awareness? You see, you can do that. I can give you an instruction. Okay, this is the way it is, folks. This is the way it works. And then you try to do the way it works. But then it's still a becoming, whereas awakening is so natural. So that's why I like to use like receptive knowing as opposed to um, judgmental knowing or welcoming or pure awareness or pure consciousness. So many words, many words. So if you're trying to find pure consciousness, you get stuck. Okay, is this pure consciousness, or is because you'll be trying to do something that I'm telling you to do. So what do? Well, just come to the purity of knowing before you make a comment, before judgment. Of course, that's hard to do because the mind is just blah, 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 right? Just going on and on and on. Will you shut up? Be quiet up there. And so thought is such a um, overpowering sankhara, isn't it? Our attention just gets so wrapped up into thinking what to do. Uh, well, I use a very, like, some thought you just see come and go. So in walking meditation, I would suggest, like, just look down at the other end of the path. and just say it's Penyang Niye. Just pure knowing. And then start to walk and see if you can just do that. Now, all of us, I know I did, when I started walking meditation, I oftentimes would try to focus on my feet so that I wouldn't think. And it was so painful. In other words, I was trying to suppress thought, concentrate on my feet, okay, because I just would get lost. I'd be walking and then I'd be in Canada, or I'd be talking to my brother. You're in Thailand, your brother's in Canada, right? So I get very lost. I got better at it. So what you want to do is constantly awaken, 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 awaken. So end of the walking path, just know, pure knowing. It's like this. And then wait, look, and then just try to practice pure knowing for the length of 20 paces, whatever it is. You won't, you get lost in thought, no problem. You just keep emphasizing the knowing and the space and the openness until that becomes more dominant. So in yesterday's talk, I gave a little kind of life story. And what I was just trying to indicate is there's a progression, but the progression is a progression of clarity rather than accumulation of experience. And so it's like a letting go of delusion, a letting go of confusion, like it's like a clarity that comes stronger and stronger and stronger, rather than you getting more and more experiences, which are better and better and better. And so even like in a half an hour or 45 minutes of walking meditation, just begin with that. Just this kind of clear knowing. It's like this. And then if you're trying to get something, notice that you have this agenda of getting rid of thinking or being focused, whatever it is not pure awareness. It's mediated by an agenda or a kind of a thing you'd like to do. So come to just the kind of purity of, I do that all the time. So I can just sit here and feel, okay, there's the pressure on my forearms. Silence. Just the pressure. And I'm not trying to be silent. It's just the nature of awareness is silent. I'm not kind of forcing it. Okay, be quiet, Viradhammo. No, I'm just with the feeling, making no comment. And there's the silence in the space. And then we're doing that like all the time. So that's the kind of ho hum thoughts, but there's a lot of thinking which is quite um, cyclical. Do you have the word earworm? Do you know what an earworm is? Explain, or how would I say in Thai? When you have a pop song and a pop song comes into your ear and you keep repeating it over and over, it won't stop. In English, we call that an earworm. It just keeps going. There's also a kind of jitta worm of some resentment, some self-doubt, just this cyclical patterns of thinking just again and again and again and again. Drive you crazy. So what to do about that? Well, my antidote to those things is some form of metta bhavana, because those cycles are not pleasant. And basically, I'd like them to stop. So the antidote from vibhavatana is metta, but also they're very much in the thinking mind. So I found that if I just learn how to bring my attention from the brain, from the cerebral structures down through the throat to the heart, and just learn to be here more. And it works. It just works. So I start to go to another abiding. And if the jitta worm has a lot of emotional content, then here it can be processed. Here it never gets processed because you're separate from it. You're not really with the mood. You're not with the jitta, you're in the thinking mode. So that's one thing. I find just learn how to be here, learn how to be in the center of the chest. And then, as some of you, many of you know, I have this weird mantra, and I call it the triple love mantra. So I will say to myself, I love you. I've always loved you. I will always love you. I just start to do that mantra in place of this Gita worm. And what happens is then that mantra, it sounds sentimental, but actually it can be very, very powerful because you're starting to put a language of openness into consciousness rather than the language of judgment, attainment, getting rid of. And that kind of language of judgment, attainment, it's so subconscious, trying to get something and get rid of something. And then we have all our kind of self judgments that we're not good enough, we're not adequate enough, we're not sufficient enough. And those are very, very powerful um, cultural habits that we all have. So then I find I just put something like that into the consciousness. I love you. I've always loved you. I will always love you. And some, well, who are you loving? Are you loving yourself, or are you saying I don't know? I just say it. And then what it begins to be, it begins to have create an attitude to the earworm, to the jitta worm. The attitude of one is open acceptance and heartfelt feeling. And then I find that those worms, repetitions begin to cease in the mind. Why? Because the heart has now an openness and acceptance. And then more and more, the inclination is towards pure awareness. Sounds complicated, but it is an important part of the way we get attached to self view, how that works. So if you can, during this retreat, contemplate what is pure awareness as opposed to judgmental awareness. And pure awareness is silent. It's not making a comment. It's not suppressing thought. It's not that. It's like I say, listen to sound. Do that for 24 hours. Now that's hard. And it's hard because of the habits, but do it for 5 minutes, do it for 1 minute, do it for 10 seconds. And they keep building on that, building on that. And that's what, when Lompa chants, the doors to the deathless are open, I would say that's it. When there's pure listening, then that's the way I would define the doors to the deathless are open, to the unformed, to the unborn, to the uncreated. It's just having faith to stay with that and having the skill to stay with that when tanha arises, when fear arises, when aversion arises, when boredom arises, when inadequacy arises. So it's easy for me to look at a rain tree and then let go of the perceptions of tree and beauty and just be in the pure knowing. More difficult, maybe if I feel resentful or if I feel lonely. It's the same thing. Loneliness is a type of tree. It's different than a happy tree or an unhappy tree, but it's not about trees. It's about the pure awareness, the pure knowing. Oak tree is different than rain tree, but the pure awareness knows both without discriminating. All right. So we do some sitting. So just a few moments of instruction, then I'll just leave you to it. But this idea of pure awareness. So use sound. All the other sense data is going on too. You feel your body, but you just localize on sound. Again, it's not about the quality of the sound. It's about the purity of awareness. So listen and then wait. It's that simple, really. So I suggest, returning to listening again and again. It's a good model for awakening. So if you just listen and wait, you can start to notice that the kind of attention that you're trying to see something or hear something. So the language of relaxed attention, sound is in awareness. So we emphasize the awareness and then do whatever you find that helps you stay present. Do anapanasati, metta bhavana, but the underlying um, attitude is this pure knowing or pure awareness.